Welcome back to Straight Facts. I'm joined by the man, the myth, the legend. He's everywhere. He's a superstar. It's Lyes. How you doing, mate?
How you doing, bro? Honestly, it's been a busy week, but I think the transfer window is starting to heat up a little bit, man. Honestly, it seems like deals are finally starting to get over the line. Our club is finally getting involved with proceedings, so that's good to see as well. But it's good to be back, man. Thanks for having me.
Mate, it's absolutely crazy. And there's a very weird spamming on here that just keeps saying 6 Champions Leagues. Is that what people are saying? Cool. Fair enough. Liverpool fans, I assume. Welcome to the show. Hope you're all good. Hope you're well. Loads to talk about today. We're talking timber to Arsenal imminence. We're talking about the situation with Lavia. Liverpool in for him now, challenging Arsenal. Ben Jacobs has confirmed that. Man United looking to bid for Onana tonight, according to Sky Sports, and Hojlund as well, mate. Reportedly, a bid has been turned down for him. We're going to delve into the Rice deal as well. I'm really intrigued. There's been so many crazy theories out there. We're talking Eniola Aluko and her doubling down. Lee Gunner believing that City never bid. It was an Ornstein lie, or Pornstein lie, as he would call it. So there's loads to talk about on the show today. There really is. Bazza, thank you for signing up as a member, my friend. I really appreciate that. And Edward, thank you for the early super chat. It means a great deal to us here. But I wanted to start off with the news tonight that supposedly Man United will be placing a bid of around 50 million euros for Andre Onana. We know what a great goalkeeper he is. Hayes kind of left now officially because his contract's run out. Do you see this bid coming in as imminently as tonight, or do you think it will be in the near future?
I don't know about all that, to be honest with you. One thing I never claimed to be is an ITK, so I don't got sources like that. But honestly, the sooner the better, man, because you know where I stand on this deal. You know where I've stood on this deal for damn near 2-3 years now. I've been one of De Gea's biggest critics, I would say. I think he's been, honestly, somebody that's really held United back from reaching that next level of being a team that can control games from the front, can sustain pressure, a goalkeeper that can do all the modern basics, which I believe is more than just passing with the ball at his feet. I believe it includes commanding your penalty box, coming off of your line, being a presence, being the first line of attack from deep. I believe that De Gea has been somebody that has really held United from taking that next step back. So I'm very, very happy to see that it seems like his time at the club is coming to an end, and that a guy like Onana, who is as close really to the modern day goalkeeper as you can get, seems to be Erik ten Hag and Man United's #1 choice. So like I said, let's hope that it gets done sooner rather than later so that we can have a guy like that in our squad for preseason.
I muted myself. A lot of people have suggested that United have treated De Gea poorly. The manager is a disgrace for pulling the deal. Fans are having a go. I'm sure you've had pelters this week if you've expressed any happiness about De Gea moving on, that we should be giving him more leeway, more respect. He's a legend. Is that type of thinking regressive to the progression of Man United? Is that, to coin your phrase, Lyes, is keeping David De Gea as the #1 cheating the process?
Keeping David De Gea is not just cheating the process. Keeping David De Gea is just abandoning the process. It's throwing it out the window, man, honestly. I do agree that the way United have handled this whole situation, in my opinion, is a bit amateur, because I believe that putting a contract on the table and kind of ripping it out at the last minute and then handing him an even smaller contract with even way less wages to a guy that, love him or hate him, has given you a huge amount of years of servitude, I do believe is a little harsh. My opinion is that the contract should have never been on the table, because I think you look at how many times De Gea has hurt United's chances this season, right? I believe that they would have won the Europa League if De Gea hadn't. If we had any other goalkeeper than De Gea this year, I believe we would have progressed past Sevilla and won the Europa League. And who knows, even in the FA Cup final, although I believe we were second best for large parts of that game, both of those goals, De Gea has a huge part to play in it. And you could tell that City directly targeted him and basically forced him to play long balls to Rashford because they knew that United could not play out the back with him. So I don't believe that the contract should have been on the table to begin with. But the way they have handled it, if I were De Gea, I would really have a sour taste in my mouth, to be honest with you, because I think for a guy who's given this many years of service to United, that's not the way to progress things. But at the same time, bro, United has to be looking towards the future, man. Honestly, I was worried at one point that we were going to go into the season again with David De Gea as your number one, because I truly believe you can make as many signings as you want. If you have a guy back there, you look at Liverpool, and they ultimately made the final step in their progression. It's when they went from Karius to Alisson. You look at City, it's when they went from Bravo and Joe Hart to Ederson. You look at Arsenal, it's when they went from Leno to Ramsdale. Having a modern day goalkeeper is so crucial to being an elite team at this level. So let's hope United can make that move sooner than later.
Yeah, listen, I don't even think it's that harsh. I understand they maybe shouldn't have offered him a deal, but when reading the majority of the stories around it, it was almost a Man United deal that was offered. And for me, I kind of, again, you're reading now, maybe he signs and there isn't the money for an Onana. This is the problem that the manager's facing. He doesn't want David De Gea. All the things he was saying nice about him publicly 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 5 months ago was him being professional and courteous and not throwing a player under the bus. I believe what's happened is a little bit like with, okay, we won't get Rabiot for you. We'll go and get Casemiro. We won't give you Arnautovic. We'll go and get you your man, Anthony. And I still think Anthony will come good for Man United. I don't even think he was as bad last season as people are projecting personally, but it's almost like they've gone, okay, we'll listen to you and we'll give you what you want. But they're still scrimping and scraping around the money. They're being very, very prudent. They're trying to push that. I mean, if we pick him up for about 40 to 42 million pounds, a player of his quality, experience he has, it's ridiculously good business. But at the same time, this should have been a deal that we did 2 or 3 weeks ago, gone back. What's the asking price? 60. Okay, cool. Yeah. Maybe you try and work it down a little bit.
To be fair, Terry, we could have even gotten this guy a year ago for free. He left Ajax with 6 months left on his deal to go to Inter, and he's only played one season at Inter.
No, absolutely. And I think that's, again, something we should have been all over. But I think that you're right. We shouldn't have ever offered him a deal. We should have listened to the manager sooner. The problem you then get, if the manager gets his way, the deal's pulled, it looks unprofessional and it looks wrong. But from Ten Hag's point of view, he didn't want him. It was something that was kind of forced upon him at the end of the day, and he got left in a very difficult situation. I always remember a famous story. Harry Redknapp didn't want to sign David Nugent. I don't know if you remember David Nugent. He was playing for, I think it was Preston in the Championship, and he was one of the last players ever to get in the England squad whilst being in the Championship with Preston.
He's the one who scored, I think, one goal in one game for England, right?
Yeah. It was going in anyway, and he knocked it over the line. And he got signed by Harry Redknapp at Portsmouth. I think it was Portsmouth. Harry didn't want him. And towards the end of the season, they had an opportunity to sign another striker. He tried to include Nugent in a swap deal. He'd only been at the club like 3 weeks in pre-season. It was something along those lines. And I think Harry kind of plays it down being like that, but that was the story at the time. And this kind of reminds me of that. When you give managers players they don't want, that don't fit their system and philosophy, they get the chance to pull the plug, they will. But the optics of it can look really bad to people. So, yeah, look, from my point of view, I'm just happy that we're hopefully moving on. I'm hopeful tonight the bid goes in. There was another story as well today that we've also put a 30 million euro bid in for Hojlund that has been rejected. It's going to cost a hell of a lot more to get this young talent than 30 million, I would assume.
Yeah, especially when United is involved, to be honest with you. It seems like the minimum asking price is 50 million. Look, Hojlund isn't a player that I've watched too much of. I'll be absolutely honest here. And I don't know really how I feel about it, because I look at United last season, and people can talk poorly or highly on Rashford's game and his season. I tend to believe that he had a very good season. I think it's amplified by the fact that you look in all competitions, Rashford scored as many goals as all of our other forward options combined. That speaks to how great his season was, and it also speaks to how poorly United's attack really performed last season. Everyone can talk about the goal difference, but it didn't come down to United having a poor defense. It came down to the fact that no one was really putting balls into the back of the net. And when you look at who United was relying on up front for half a season in Weghorst and a crippled Martial, it kind of suggests as much. So that's why really this season, I'm a little pessimistic about the names United are being linked to up front. I don't know if Hojlund is really somebody who from the jump can come into this United team and give you the numbers that you really need for a striker that's leading the line for United. You think of the great number 9s United have had throughout the years, and that's always been a staple of their team. I look at the names like Gonzalo Ramos. I look at Hojlund. I look at really who else has been linked to them. Kolo Muani are these guys that are going to come into United and give you 20 plus goals in the league. I'm not entirely convinced. However, it's yet to be seen that in a system like Ten Hag's, maybe their numbers go up. But I would like to see a guy like Hojlund or a guy like Evan Ferguson perhaps come in with a more experienced, reliable striker in the near future. I don't think that's going to end up happening, though, A, because of United's finances this summer, and B, who's available on the market. So Hojlund, I think long term is a nice prospect, but this season in particular, I don't think we should have too high of expectations for the kid.
Yeah, and if we end up spending the 100 million euros they're asking for, that the world's like now. The pressure then amplifies.
Yeah.
You look at the way we kind of treat young players. We signed Anthony. Now I know you've been highly critical of him. I've seen comments actually say you're an Anthony hater. I don't think he is. Yeah, high standards. And I've had moments where I've criticized him this year, but it's because he came in at 82, 83 million pounds. Yeah. And we tend to, what you're doing is saying, I want these things to improve, but you're giving him time. But for rivals in the media, we saw the way TalkSport were riding out for him. It's unless you're like Zidane or Ronaldinho year one, you get highly criticized. If we drop 100 million euros on this kid who isn't scoring like Haaland or Mbappe or Kane, the pressure is going to be so immense. That's also another factor in this deal. And if we're going to spend 100 M's on him, go and get Harry Kane. And I know he's younger, but if you're going to drop 100 million on him and we're prepared to spend 80 on Harry Kane, you're better off taking some of the money from Hojlund and putting it towards Kane.
Yeah,
because that's a better option. That is a better option of him as the only striker. If you can only get one, put the two deals combined. Man United want to get both. If Man United could, they'd have signed Harry Kane for 80 and about 30 for this kid. They'd have gone to about 120. So for me, if we've got about 120 for two strikers, put that all into Harry Kane and go and get him. Like, I like this kid. If we pick him up for 40 million, 50 million euros, fair enough. You start going near those 70s, 80s, 90s, you know how rivals work. The pressure could just become too much for him too soon. And
you look at forget about rivals, right? You look at Martial is a good example of a kid who really hadn't accomplished much in his career, but was seen as like some super talent. We probably paid above the odds for him. And although he had a really good start to his United career, eventually relying on a player of that age with that little experience at a club like United, where forget about rival fans, our own fans are going to put so much pressure on them. I just don't think that's the ideal situation. Like, imagine if we had Martial under the stewardship of a guy like Harry Kane at the time, who Martial isn't expected to do everything. I look at a guy like Hojlund too. If Hojlund goes 5, 6, 7 games without scoring for United, forget about rival fans. Our own fans are going to get on his back. So, yeah, I mean, I echo your sentiment, man. This is a huge club with huge expectations. And it's why I always laugh when I see people say, like, oh, look at Enzo Lafia at Lorient. We should go sign him for United. Guys, the level of standards and expectation at a club like United compared to Atalanta or compared to Lorient or compared to, I don't know, Feyenoord, it's just night and day, man. You can't compare the two.
On top of that, not one single City fan complained that Haaland didn't score in his last 8 games of the season.
Yeah.
He didn't score in the final. Yeah, he didn't score in the final few games of the Premier League to clinch it. Didn't score in the Champions League final or the FA Cup final. But because they won, I didn't see any. I saw zero criticism. And I understand he scored loads of goals already. So you'd say, why would there be criticism? However, Rashford scored 30 goals last season. And because towards the back end of the season, he wasn't scoring at the same rate as the middle, he was getting absolute pelters. But if Man United had won the Premier League and had won the FA Cup final, there would have been zero criticism of Rashford's poor level of goals comparatively to the previous 4 months. And that's the problem with Man United fans. Our expectations are they're nice and high, but they're too concentrated. We put all this pressure on Bruno, Rashford, Sandro, and you're right to, but you're putting all your eggs into those 3 or 4 players. You look at a City, or you look at Liverpool under Klopp when they're at their best. That was spread out amongst so many top-class players. We still don't have that level of quality to spread the responsibility across. And again, you bring in Hojlund at 100 million, it's going to be right. You're a 100 million pound player. You've got to score us to the league. You've got to go and match Haaland. You've got to be better than Kane. And that's just, again, I know what Lee Gunner would say. Well, you're lowering the standards by saying that. No, there's a difference between having high standards and expecting the impossible. I expect my children to be well behaved at school, to learn, to pass their exams, to do well in sport, to try their best. I don't expect my 9-year-old boy to already be doing his degree. There are some child prodigies. There are some prodigies, like who do what Haaland and Mbappe do in football. There are some kids that's 8, 9, 10 are doing A levels or doing degrees because they are super geniuses.
Yeah, that's one in a trillion. It's generational.
Exactly. Not literally, Haaland, barring R9, is the first person since R9 to score this amount of goals in Europe at his age. And prior to that, I look back, I can't find anybody for the last 60 years.
Ben Bastian, man, honestly, like you're going back that far.
So, but it's like everyone's got to be that player, but that's impossible. It's never going to happen. But I think they almost know this when they set those expectations, but they just want to moan. They want to be hypercritical. And if you set an expectation that can't be reached, you can always be angry, right? And that for me is my worry about doing 100M on him when he ain't quite ready for that response. Now, he could prove us wrong, come in and be amazing. And we're like, wow, I love it. But we'll see. There's a super chat.
Yeah, I just don't think, too. Yeah, I was going to say as well, I just think, like, you look at what Chelsea just paid for, what's his name? Nico Jackson from Villarreal, who relatively, they have about the same amount of experience. Like, they've had one season, really, of kind of taking people's attention. Chelsea got him for 35 million, man. United are the only club on the planet, and it's a bit their own fault because of all the poor dealings that they made over the years. They're kind of like reaping the rewards in the worst way possible. But no, Atalanta is not quoting any other club on the planet 100 million for Hojlund, man. It's just because it's Man United.
No, 110%. Chike here says, Lyes, expectations for United this season. Also, when I talk about reality, Terry, I did mean work and your career because I want to work in the NFL, but ESPN are laying off people. I want to get an internship. On the second bit, we'll talk offline for that because I don't know too much about the NFL or where to start work-wise in that. It's not my area of expertise, but they are laying people off. But that's another conversation. But Lyes, expectations for Man United?
It depends, really, man. Let me see the signings at the end of the season, at the end of the summer, and I can tell you. But I would say, in my opinion, based on what I think is realistic for United to do, I think the best case scenario is probably third again. And that's if they get all their business right. I don't think United can make enough realistic signings to bridge the gap between Arsenal and City this summer. So I think the best they could do is third. I would expect top 4 again.
Yeah, 100% the same. If we get the sign, again, takeover happens. If that happens tomorrow morning and there's new money and we go and get Kane and we go and get De Jong and we
that
go
changes.
And it changes. But yeah, right now, I just don't think we're going to get onto Arsenal later. I don't think we've done enough yet to catch them, let alone win the win the Premier League title just yet. So yeah. That's just me personally. Other people might see that a little differently, but there we go. Terry, why is United all noise and no results in the transfer market, whilst clubs like Liverpool are doing their deals quietly and fast? Are United a circus club? Well, you've got to remember, you could argue that we are, and I don't take that as an offense. However, you look at the Onana deal. The English press has only been talking about it for 2 days. The difference is that when anyone talks about Man United, the news trends. As an example, with Liverpool, we know they've been talking to Thuram and Kone all summer because that's been news every week. We knew they were talking to McAllister from about April. So barring Soboslai, their other deals, one that's completed, the other 2 are still ongoing, have been very loud and public. Tonight, we're going to talk about later, Liverpool looking at Lavia. That's loud and public. So I want to be really fair to Man United here. I don't like how some of our sagas drag on, and we've created that problem. But when we act like all of Liverpool's business is there's no discussion in the media, barring one, the rest of them are all over the media. So I think it depends who you support, Lana. If you're a Man United fan, I think you notice yours in the media more than rivals because it's all you seek it more, if that makes sense, you know. But yeah, I don't think Man United aren't the greatest at transfers, but to say like we're exponentially worse than all the other top 6, I personally think. I remember I did a stat on this. It's about 3 years ago I did it. Everyone said we take too long to get our deals done. So I worked out the average day from the end of the season, the average amount of days until we made our first signing of the summer, and the average amount of days over a 5-year period until we signed our marquee of the summer. Liverpool and City were the best, and they averaged for their marquee player like 37 days. Man United was 42. So it was a case of they're better, but are they that? I think with Man United fans, again, I think we exaggerate how bad things are. Not the overpaying and not buying the wrong players. I'm just talking about how quickly we get deals done. The Sancho one, everyone thinks about is it took 2 years. But, you know, look how long Van Dijk took. They had to pull away from that because they got done for tapping up. And we're like, everyone's got examples of that. I just think we're hypercritical, I think. But
I think too, look, and United fans are very gullible as well. I think all football fans are gullible in the transfer market. But look, we get linked to every single player under the sun, man. Like I think a few seasons ago, someone tallied up the amount of players United were linked to that summer. I think it was like 90, bro, in terms of like what all the players that media outlets and journalists and pundits had linked United to. It was 90. And United are clearly not interested in 90 players in one window. So it's also about really like knowing who your sources are. So if you're expecting United to really be chasing down Neymar because, I don't know, the Sun told you so, prepare to be disappointed, honestly.
Also, breaking news, Tottenham have just signed Manor Solomon from Fulham. Here we go, from Fabrizio Romano.
Wow.
Yeah, 23-year-old forward. I don't know too much about him, to be fair. I mean, he did
Solomon,
play
he was scoring a few bangers last season, to be fair. Like he had a few like
goals.
Yeah, and they were good quality goals. Wow, that's Spurs' third signing of the summer. And I would say, to be honest with you,
yeah,
I would say that they're decent signings, man. Vicario as a goalkeeper, I don't know too much about, but I think they really needed to address that because Lloris is on his last legs. Madison, I think, is a terrific signing, and Solomon for depth up front or on the wings, that's decent, man. That's three smart signings from Spurs, man.
I don't know much. He hasn't signed from Fulham. He played for Fulham. He was on loan from Shakhtar. I just got on and read that now, but yeah, I mean, again, I remember a few goals. I don't remember him being a standout player last year when I watched Fulham. But yeah, interesting business that they're doing. They're not, but I wouldn't say Madison's a superstar. He's well known. They're not signing superstars, but I am intrigued to know how that is gonna transpire, if that makes sense, in the coming days, weeks, and months. But well done, Tottenham, with another. Yeah, I mean, they are doing some good. How do you think they're going to do next year, Tottenham?
I think this is like back to the Spurs we know and love, to be honest with you. Like Spurs, for as long as I knew them before Pochettino really came in, were like the beautiful underdogs, really. Like they play nice football. They don't really ever win anything. They never really challenge the big teams, but everyone likes them because they have your favorite players in Berbatov or Defoe or later on Bale and Modric. And they're just content with being 5th, 6th, 7th, playing nice football and having players that they'll end up selling for 100 million. I think Pochettino really allowed them to dream and took them to grandeurs, like challenging for the league and making Champions League finals that were just like, for me, unsustainable. And I think Spurs almost like believed in the hype too much when they went for guys like for Conte and Mourinho, who are really short-term, really ugly football, in my opinion, on the eye, but they get you results and trophies. But I think that was kind of like abandoning their identity, abandoning who we all know Spurs really are. I think they forgot that kind of side of things. So I think I like the appointment of Postecoglou. I think these are decent signings. I think it's going to return Spurs to that team that we know. They're not going to make top 4, in my opinion, but they're going to play nice football next year. We're all going to like watching them play. Madison will probably score a few excellent screamers. And that's what Spurs are, man. Beautiful underdogs.
Yeah, the bridesmaids. The bridesmaids.
Yeah, there you go. Never the brides.
Terry, love your creation, and I became a member. Thank you, Samuel. It means a great deal to us that you have done that. Yeah, I've got a lot of reservations over Tottenham, but then I'm viewing it from the angle of, can they win major trophies with Postecoglou and the players they're buying? The answer is no. But will they play nice football? Will they entertain? Yeah, their fans are getting very giddy. Their fans are getting very giddy. I want to ask you a little bit about Liverpool. There's a big breaking story tonight that, first of all, Ben Jacobs broke it. Fabrizio has now corroborated this story that Liverpool are seriously exploring Romeo Lavia. They want to challenge Arsenal for his signature. Now, we know that Szoboszlai and McAllister are already in. Liverpool could potentially be about to add Lavia into the mix. We know Arsenal are looking at him as well. That could be a really formidable, young, powerful midfield that Klopp's building at Anfield, you know?
Yeah, no, look, I mean, I find it ironic because all of last season I was slated by Liverpool fans because I basically said, look at your midfield. It needs complete, to copy Ranić's saying, you need open heart surgery in that midfield. And spending all of your money on one player in Bellingham is going to be like when United bought Pogba and expected one player to basically fix their midfield. It was never going to work well for Bellingham or for Liverpool. And it was much wiser to kind of spend that 100 million plus on 2-3 players to, the sum of the parts is greater than the whole, or whatever that expression goes. So I find it a little ironic that the same people who booed me now, that all of a sudden it's great business by Liverpool, which I agree it is. McAllister, top player. Szoboszlai, I like a lot. Actually, I like Soboslai, but is that the player maybe they should have gotten? We'll see. I like Lavia a lot. I went on your channel, 2 weeks ago. I said Lavia is a top talent, and I could definitely envision him as one of the best midfielders in his position going forward based on his potential. But is he ready after one season of professional football, which that's all he's played for Southampton, to now be the leading defensive midfielder for a club like Liverpool or a club like Arsenal? I think it may be a little too soon. And that's why maybe joining Arsenal and being like a deputy for Rice could be better for him. But at the same time, Liverpool are kind of trying to rebuild this squad and get a young team that all have around the same window. And he would be learning under Fabinho, who, in my opinion, is on the decline, but he can still contribute somewhat. So, yeah, I mean, look, going forward, Romeo Lavia, my man McAllister, and Soboslai, that's a decent midfield three going forward. Plus, you add the likes of Curtis Jones, who, in my opinion, ended the season really well last year. Harvey Elliott, who fans are very critical of, but let's not forget, is still extremely young himself. Yeah, I think Liverpool are building a nice little midfield over at Anfield.
I agree. And I think that I look at Lavia to Man United would make sense because he'd start a lot of games, he'd play understudy to Casemiro, and in 2 or 3 years' time, when Casemiro moves on because of age, he'd be ready. I think exactly the same thing when it comes to Liverpool, because I think Fabinho next season, with the legs of McAllister, the youth and exuberance and power of Szoboszlai and Lavia, 2 of the 3 playing with him regularly, being rotated. He may be missing some games, so some of maybe the easier European nights, as an example, some of the easier games in the League Cup at the beginning, if they're easy. Lavia plays and Fabinho gets a rest. I know Fabinho's only in his late 20s. He's not, people are talking about him like he's 34, 35. I think the inclusion of these young players could almost give him a bit of a rebirth as well, if that makes sense. So, yeah, look, from my point of view, I look at Liverpool. If that's their midfield, it's not only going to improve them in the short term, that's 5 to 8 years of quality there again. Whether Klopp's here for it or not, that is excellent. The only thing that I still think Liverpool fans are upset about, some, is this should have happened. And, of course, not with this profile and individuals, because Lavia wouldn't have been around. But this should have happened 2 years ago. The difference between Liverpool and City is City. Look at City this year. Kovacic already in. They're talking about Kimmich. They're talking about Frankie de Jong today. No one's corroborated that story from the Sun, but they're looking at Frankie de Jong. They tried to get Rice. They will spend. Guardiola's coming in. Liverpool don't do it. Arsenal last year. We're not even onto them yet, but they missed out narrowly. Gone and done 200 million in the first 2 weeks of the window. Liverpool need to behave like that year in, year out, with their revenues, with their owners, and they're doing it this summer. They're spending big and/or buying quality. I mean, that will be, and then they've got McAllister cheap because of buyout clause. I think Lavia's a buyout clause as well, maybe around 40 million. So they're getting 75 million pounds worth of talent. If you actually market value those guys, you're probably looking nearer 110, 120. If McAllister didn't have that clause, he'd be a 60, 70 million pound player. So yeah, look, Liverpool are looking like they could start like cooking. Do you think, where else do you think they need to add as well as midfield though?
Yeah, no, first of all, I completely agree with you, right? I always say it is much more difficult it's more difficult to stay at the top than to get at the top, to get to the top, basically. So I think you left out the biggest one. United, honestly, the ruthlessness that Sir Alex moved in the transfer window, getting rid of players that people thought at the time were crazy, like Van Nistelrooy, like Beckham, like Stam. Of course, there were personal problems in there as well, but he got rid of these guys at the peak of their powers and still kept his team at the top because he basically foresaw their decline before it even happened. And I think that was Liverpool's biggest mistake. Completely agree. They needed to continue strengthening and putting their foot on the neck of their closest competitors when they were at the top. And that's what's contributed to their downfall. Where do Liverpool need to strengthen next? I think, so the way Liverpool kind of finished the season last year, if you remember, right? It wasn't what we were used to seeing with Liverpool, where we typically see Robertson on the left, Trent on the right, bombing forward. They kind of switched the system where Trent is now playing in midfield alongside Fabinho, and Robertson is almost playing as like a left center back, and it's almost like a back three: Konate, Van Dijk, and Robertson. I think that left center back role is where Liverpool need to invest in next, in my opinion, because I think Robertson has been a great servant for that club, and he's put in some unbelievable years in the last few years in the Premier League. But I think they need someone who can play that inverted center back role more, or that inverted left back, whatever you want to call it, to a higher level than Robertson can. I think you get someone in that role, and then I think you look at Liverpool. I don't know if they'll be ready this season, just because there's also a lot of question marks over these guys. Are they ready to get back to challenging City? But going forward, then you got a top team, man. Liverpool, honestly, this rebuild is looking good.
No, it is, and they've reacted very, very, very quickly indeed to that. I think you're right in that role because they're very much going to use Trent. I think Klopp has woken up and smelt the coffee. I feel like they're going to use him in that inverted role. They're going to keep him away from defending as much as they can, which is important because we all know about Trent. I remember when we used to do Friday night on the Terrace, the amount of debates, it almost happened every week. Who was better? Like you had like Reece James or Trent.
And Cancelo too. Don't worry, Cancelo was in there because I got killed for Cancelo.
And AWB was in there. But this was the thing. When it was about marauding and attacking, Trent or Cancelo nearly always came out on top. Everyone rated Reece James because he could do both. In the last 12 months, and I remember saying this, I think we spoke about this on one of our shows years ago. It always, positions rotate. AWB is looking like a better right back again because defending is becoming a key component of right backs in 2023. So suddenly you're rating a defender that can defend, and the Cancelos and the Trents who are not great at defending, they're good, not great. Suddenly nobody wants them in their defense anymore. They want them moved into midfield or sold because things evolve, things change. Teams work out how to nullify what you're doing. Or, like with City, until they change their formation this year, like with Liverpool, until they put Trent in midfield, the systems get found out and exposed. Now, the world-class managers, the Klopps and the Peps and the Fergies and the Wenger of old and many before them, they adapt their systems, their formations. They drop a player. And fans go, why are you dropping something?
You foresee it. Honestly, I always say football goes wherever Pep takes it, to be honest with you. Everyone now is playing this, 3-5 or 3-2-5. Everyone is doing it because Pep did it first, man. The guy is an innovator, but yeah.
No, 110%, mate. I couldn't agree with you more. It's loads of people do it. And, we saw it, the older fans remember other managers doing things and people following suit and copying. It's an absolute crazy one. It really, really is. But they're looking at Lavia. But what do you think is going to happen? Like Chelsea were looking at him as well, but Chelsea very much look like Caicedo is going to be their guy. There's a lot of news being sort of pushed out again. Fabrizio has retweeted his Caicedo update from the 15th of June saying Chelsea are working hard on it. So he just retweeted it. What do you make of that?
Of Caicedo going to Chelsea? What'd you say? I can't hear you.
I was going to run to the toilet for 1 sec. You keep talking, bro. Sorry.
Yeah. Caicedo to Chelsea. Yeah, let me take over the show, man. Football Terrace brought to you by Lyes. I think Caicedo is very good. I do think that the hype has maybe gotten a little too high. I think one thing that football fans are guilty of is that when a player kind of bursts onto the scene and gives you a season like Caicedo did last year, football fans become very narrow-minded and almost start believing that this is the only player on the market. This is the only midfielder that my club can buy. Look, there are players that, although they might not be performing at the way Caicedo just did this last season, can offer your team what Caicedo gave you. So I think people now are starting to talk about Caicedo like he's the next N'Golo Kante. Let's slow down a bit. However, you add that guy to a midfield alongside Enzo Fernandez, who I think personally was kind of playing a role last season that doesn't suit him the best, which is like basically the deepest midfielder tasked with defending and kind of being like the anchor. I think Enzo needs to play alongside a ball winner like Caicedo to truly get the best out of him and allow him to be like a deep lying playmaker, because the guy's passing range and his ability to kind of break lines from deep is up there with the best, to be honest with you. So I think you add Caicedo next to a midfielder like Enzo Fernandez. That's, for me, one of the best midfield pairings in the Premier League. The question for me with Chelsea is the attack. And I've been saying this for the last 2 years when they were signing all those defenders last season. Where is the creativity in the final third? Where are the players that are going to be creating chances, and where are the players that are going to be putting the ball in the back of the net? You've signed Nkunku. You've signed Nico Jackson. Is that enough? Because you're losing Havertz, you're losing João Felix, you're losing Mason Mount. Are there enough goals in this team? That's my biggest question with Chelsea. Where's the creativity coming from? And are there enough reliable goal scorers in this team? Because I think you look from the back all the way to the midfield, Chelsea have something cooking there. I think it's the final third, and you're going to have to ask a lot from Mudryk this season. His output drastically has to improve. And Nkunku will have to replicate the numbers he's doing in the Bundesliga. And I'm trying to think outside of those two. Madueke, maybe you're going to have to rely on him. The attack is where I'm a little iffy with Chelsea.
Yeah, I've said for a few weeks, I think they've done brilliantly to get rid of players. I think that Caicedo, I know you've already probably waxed lyrical about him, but this kid is something special. This will be a phenomenal piece of business for Chelsea. There's no doubt about it. However, I think they need to add, and maybe I'm being a little, again, maybe Chelsea fans think I'm being a bit harsh. I think they need a few more older players. And some of these players might not even be.
Yeah.
Do you remember when, like, players like, I want to get him an example, Morales, experienced Portuguese player, was never world class.
Oh, Morales.
But Chelsea bought him
Yeah.
when Chelsea was still one of the best teams in the country. Almost need a bit of experience in there. Now, I don't know who that would, if he was a bit younger, like a João Matinho. I'm just throwing a name out there. I can't think of it. I can't think of one right now off the top of my head. But you know that, like, the profile of player I'm talking about, maybe
Yeah.
like a Silva, but a one in midfield, or maybe one that can be in the attack. Because if you only start the season with 2 or 3 really experienced outfield players in a squad of 23, I think they'll improve in terms of football. I think that they can go to another level. They can challenge the top 4. But I think in terms of getting over the line, it may just be a little bit difficult for them. But in terms of progression, they are going to be an exponent. James Milner, when he went to Liverpool, is a prime example.
Yeah, he went at a good age.
Exactly. And it's, I don't know if I said Morales low, but yeah, he was good. He was a good player.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just need a bit of experience and an old head to go in there and help sort of gel things together. Even Reece James is experienced, but he's still really young. And sometimes when the going gets tough, it's very, very difficult when you've got those elder statesmen missing. But yeah, they're doing some. I mean, the amount of players they got rid of. And what do you make of the Saudi stuff? Because a lot of people are bitter about that.
I don't know too much about it, but I think it's a little shady. I can't lie, bro. The fact, what is it, that PIF is what, one of the investors in Chelsea now? Is that basically what it is?
So, not really. So Clear Lake, all right, they own about 70 billion. They have $70 billion assets under management, and that money is made up from multiple other investment companies, banks, individuals, rich people. And 5% of that 75 billion has been put in there by PIF from Saudi Arabia. So they've just invested their money in there. Nobody at PIF has anything to do with running Clear Lake and doesn't run anything at Chelsea. But they've just used, obviously, their connection with PIF to be introduced to these clubs that they own in Saudi, and they've built a relationship. And for me, Man United used to have a feeder club in Portugal, Sporting. We used to have Antwerp in Belgium.
Antwerp is the one I was going to say. Yeah.
The only difference between this and them is that Chelsea have made relationships with rich clubs and not broke or lower down the level.
Do you think so, though, man? I don't know. Because I remember Chelsea, they used to have Vitesse. Vitesse was their one club in the Netherlands that they sent all their players to. But I don't know. I feel like that's a feeder club. This is almost like a feeder league.
No, I understand that. But yeah, there is a difference in it. But I feel like this is just an accelerated version. And if, by the way, Chelsea's old feeder club was a big German team or a big Italian team with money, that also would have been criticized and looked at as dodgy. But why can you do it with Sporting and Vitesse and Antwerp, but not with a Saudi team? I personally don't have an issue with it. I just wish Man United had done that relationship and we could get rid of our players we don't want at lesser fees. But yeah, it's really interesting to see how it's going to progress for Chelsea. But yeah, they're definitely going to have a better year. They're definitely going to have a better season in my view.
I mean, I think it's impossible not to, man. I mean, if they get worse than 12, then serious conversations need to be had about Chelsea, honestly.
No, it's absolutely true. We've got a super chat here. It's back to Liverpool, actually. It says, as a Liverpool fan, I still think we need to sell Fabinho and get, I think you mean Paulinho from Everton, who I think Bajcetic can learn from. And in 3 years, Bajcetic can be Liverpool's main CDM. But of course, I'm happy with Lavia. I look at it this way. If you're going to replace Fabinho with a ready-made player, do it, but still get Lavia and let him compete with Bajcetic. You should never, in my opinion, you can for strikers, it's a little different if you've got a goal scorer, but in midfield, add the quality. And if Bajcetic is good enough through his appearances and training, he'll stop Lavia. If he ain't good enough to stop Lavia, then he was never good enough. So I wouldn't worry about the path. The pathways argument for me is a dead one, really. The way Nkunku and plus Jackson play suits each other, in my opinion. Do you know much about this Jackson kid?
Nico Jackson, nah, not enough to honestly have a good opinion on him.
Yeah, I'm the
But
same.
yeah, again, that's another one though. If he's the one leading the line for Chelsea next season, I'd be apprehensive as a Chelsea fan. And this is the same thing that I said of Hojlund, so I'm not being biased towards one club or another. Chelsea and United, for as long as Chelsea less recently, because I think you look at the amount of big name strikers that they brought in that flopped, is concerning. But the Chelsea that I grew up on and the United that I grew up on, you always have a number 9 up front, whether it's Drogba, whether it's Diego Costa, whether it's Hasselbank, even back in the days, a guy that you can rely on, bro, that will at least give you 15 to 20 goals. Asking a guy from Villarreal who has only really broke onto the scene in the last 12 to 18 months to replicate those kinds of numbers and lead the line for Chelsea is a huge ask, man. Honestly, and if it works out, if he's able to do that, great. But I remember guys like Batshuayi, who also came in from Marseille and was expected to kind of replicate what Drogba did when he came from Marseille. It didn't work out that way, man. So we'll see what happens with Nico Jackson.
Yeah, I feel like he had a good end to the season. He's got a lot of goals. If he was scoring Haaland numbers or Mbappe numbers, then and you've got a really good established team already like City, and you put him in, it works. And if you throw Haaland into that, but Haaland would have probably converted a lot of Chelsea's chances this year, and they would have had a better season. There's no doubt. But sometimes when you put a young player into a dysfunctional team that's got problems in the boardroom, in the training ground, that can impact you as well. Sometimes I think when you're young and you're a good goal scorer, you need to go into a team and system that's already well oiled. Rooney, when he joined Man United, as an example, it wasn't like he went into a team that had been rubbish for 15 years and it was like, right, you're a kid, you've got to deliver the titles. Gary Neville always spoke about how when the class of 92 came through, it was the Schmeichels, Pallisters, Bruce, Cantonars, McClares, Coles, the elder statesmen. They were the ones that were expected to win the games in the league. The kids were meant to be there to supplement it. I think when you buy, I know there's exceptions to the rule in Mbappe, Cristiano Ronaldo when he was younger, and Haaland now, and Rooney was an exception to the rule, maybe. But most of the time, when you buy 22 years of age and younger, they shouldn't be they're generally not the final piece of the jigsaw.
Of course, unless they're a super talent. Honestly, yeah, absolutely, man. Unless they are a talent of the likes, like you said, Mbappe, Haaland, I would throw Rooney in there because we knew Rooney at that point was a super talent at that age. Unless they're of that caliber, and you can really tell at that point, expecting them to come in and be the focal point for a team, expecting to challenge and make the top 4 and play in the Champions League, it's a risk. It is an absolute risk. I wish Nico Jackson nothing but the best. But as a Chelsea, if I were a Chelsea fan, I would be apprehensive. And if I'm a United fan signing Hojlund to lead the line for United at this age, I'm apprehensive.
Mate, I could not agree with you more. There's a super chat here says the way United are acting in the transfer window, it proves top 4 only to fill the Glazers' pockets. If we rather finish 8th, then we'd get proper backing. Yeah, failure normally equals more money being spent at Man United, but we'll see what happens by the end of the window, my bro. And I am hopeful, and I am praying that we can do something else. And I'm hoping that the owner comes in. I also hope, by the way, I look at the Kane situation with Bayern. If Bayern can agree a deal or get close to agreeing a deal, and it's like less than the 120 we were quoted, maybe we sweep in and go, well, we'll match the bid. Maybe, I'm hoping we maybe do something clever like that. But Man United and clever.
Plus, I think it'll be difficult too dealing with Levy, right? Because knowing that guy, he would rather sell for less to Bayern than sell for more to United.
No, 100%. Yeah. Again, for me, I've said it on my video earlier on today. Really a pipe dream of mine. If Man United walk away from Onana, Ten Hag got a hell of a job. Even worse situation than last year. Young striker, still no balance, midfield with no proper goalkeeper. Well, when you think that Pep got to do Bravo followed by Edison 2 years running, that's the difference between the way we're currently run. If we walk away from a 50 million euro deal for Onana because the Glazers don't sanction it, again, anyone who's there are always going to be exceptions to the rule. Someone might be buying it for a sick child, or their father might be on their way out and they want one more kit. There's always exceptions to the rules of buying kits. But any Man United fan spending any money on the club until this takeover is done, I'll never, ever understand it. We can still protest, still not buy things, still pull our money away. And I saw those protesters there. They were getting stick. They were there, and fair play to them. They're getting stick. And one of the posts one of the guys put out, right, was like, we've got to boycott Adidas. And then someone took a picture, and like 80% of the blokes standing there were all wearing Adidas trainers. And it's like, and then like, we just mean the shirt. And it's like, no, you boycott everything. You can't be like, we're going to ruin Adidas and then go out and buy their trainers. I laugh so hard. I'm like, oh, like Adidas don't just make money out of the club through the shirts.
Yeah.
They're on the shirts to advertise their brands. So you buy more of their other things. That's literally the point of it. And it's like, oh, bless.
No, it's like when it's like for me personally, anyways. I don't know if you agree with it, but when I see like these posters or whatever, it's like boycott all of United sponsors. Like, okay, fairs, but like boycotting like Angry Birds when they had them at the time or whatever. Like, really, is that really hurting the Glazers in any regard? Like, let's be intelligent with what we're boycotting here.
I hear you, mate. I sort of look at it along the lines of, yeah, don't buy the kits. The main sponsors boycott. What we did to TeamViewer, they're like ruin their online presence, like by going on Google. Things like that are funny. At the end of the day, don't do it to small businesses or little individuals. But some conglomerate that's owned by a billionaire, I don't care so much. Like that's proper protest. This here from Fuad said Sabitzer with a haircut equals slobber sly shooting merchant is what Fuad says. I don't know about that.
I know that's not the real Fuad because the real Fuad loves Sobotlai the way he was talking about him.
Yeah, it can't be. My guy Fuad isn't. That's Canadian dollars. Unless he flew to Canada today, that's not him. But it's his army, obviously a supporter of his.
Yeah.
Chelsea can't find no good strikers on the market. Is that true?
Maybe, because I don't think United can really look for one at the moment either. I think it's a weird market, right? Where you see the top dogs in Kane and Osimhen are really probably unattainable this window by an English team. And then the next level down is really where you're asking. It's a huge risk in terms of, again, like I said, Gonzalo Ramos, Hojlund, Kolo Muani, Nico Jackson. Like it is a risk. So I don't disagree. Like the market is a weird one, man. Honestly, if I was a United fan, I'm talking again about don't cheat the process. I'd probably rather prioritize goalkeeper, midfield, and maybe another position and wait for the right striker to come along in the market down the line rather than just spend 70 million on Gonzalo Ramos because he's the best available.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think we still need 2 more midfielders and a centre back. Thiago will leave on a free, and Henderson ain't it no more. Plus, Romero said Liverpool also wants a centre back. Yeah, I mean, 2 more midfielders. I doubt you're going to sign more than 3. I doubt you'll do more than 3 in one window because you've still got Curtis Jones and Bajcetic as an example. Henderson will still be there. So you don't want to overinflate it. Your manager doesn't like a big squad. But I get what you want. But if you do sign Lavia, I would think that's it for the midfield personally. If United buy all the possible targets which were linked, still don't think those are good enough for top 4 the way others improve. It depends what you mean by linked to. Because if we sign Harry Kane, we're linked to De Jong as well. Like, you've got to name me what players you're saying here. You've got to be very specific, I think. Because if we sign De Jong and Kane and Onana, just those 3 plus Mount, we're challenging for the Premier League. So, yeah.
I think even if we were to sign Onana, Mount, and maybe another midfielder, I still think we're in contention for top 4. We're talking about top 4, guys. This isn't impossible to achieve. Newcastle, with all due respect, just made the top 4, and I wouldn't say that their team is head and shoulders above us at all. You could argue that United has the better squad overall. So we're talking about the top 4, guys. We're not talking about challenging for the league. Onana changes so much. Man United fans, I know that
we already said earlier, there's weirdos that are already starting agendas against him. Like, you better never make a mistake. People are going to be shocked at how much better we are at football. Of course, by the way, I'll predict it now for Onana. There'll be 3 or 4 times this season where he gets caught out on the ball.
Yeah.
There might even be a goal from it, but he'll get caught out.
Yeah.
There'll be at least 1 or 2 kicks a game that go out of play or miss his target. And he'll probably have 2 or 3 shots that he should save this season that go in, because that happens to every goalkeeper. So this notion that he's going to come in and be impenetrable is just weird. But agendas have got to agenda, haven't they, Lyes? You know what I mean?
Honestly, I think people are married to the mid, honestly, man. That's what I keep saying, man. They're married to the mid. People still sticking with De Gea in 2023. Again, I'm not saying hate on the guy. I'm not saying post 2-hour comps like I saw one guy yesterday. You can respect what he's done, but at this point, if you're still fighting what's the word for it? Irrefutable facts that are on your television screen every single weekend, and David De Gea no longer being up to the standard of this club, there is something wrong with you, man. It's either an act or you don't view football in the correct way. That's all I got to say in that regard. You're married to the mid.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's crazy to me. It really, really is. Chelsea are going for Dusan Vlahovic, 60 million rejected. I mean, that'd be a decent signing. You add him to your front with Jackson as the backup, different levels. The other team that we're looking at Lavia are Arsenal. They're also very
Mm.
close to signing Urian Timber. That looks like it's going to be announced imminently. I've also been told tonight, keep your eyes out, because they may be announcing Declan Rice this evening. But you look at the Timber deal. You look at they blew City out the water. The player picked them over City. Arsenal are doing some bits, Lyes. 2 weeks ago we spoke. 2 weeks later they've done £200 million. I know Mount and Timber haven't been formally announced, but we know they're both going to happen. So, like, phenomenal from Arsenal so far.
Nah, I mean, look, I can't speak highly enough about not just the business that Arsenal have done, but the aggression and intent that they have shown in the early signs of this window. I think, me personally, I said at the time last year, and it ended up being true. The way Arsenal got all of their targets really in and ready for preseason, you saw how good they were in preseason, and it kind of like led into the league. I know people don't want to put too much stock into preseason, and rightfully so. Like, you can have a poor preseason and have a good season, but it does count for something, guys, right? Getting your targets in, getting them blooded into your training and the way you want to play, and having your team play the way they want to play early into preseason, leading into the season, is only good for your team. And I think you look at United last year, the way they started poorly and only really got their season on track when they got their signings in late into the window. Proof's in the pudding, man. Get your guys in and you will look better earlier in the season. So Arsenal have kind of repeated the same trick. It looks like they're going to get all three of their big signings in right in time for preseason. I would not be surprised to see them first few weeks in the league fly past teams, look like the best team in the league, because they will have prepared. It's like Roy Keane said, right? Fail to prepare, prepared to fail, and Arsenal prepared to succeed. I can't wait, honestly, till we can talk about the Rice stuff, because I think some of the coverage around that has been absolutely hilarious. Honestly, I don't want to harass anyone. I don't want to send harassment to anyone, but some of the coverage of the Declan Rice deal is amateur, in my opinion.
Examples?
Eniola Aluko, honestly, I think that is one of the most comical bits of punditry, whatever you want to call it, that I have seen. And again, I don't mean to send abuse at anyone, but the fact that she doubled down on that as well was embarrassing. That's the kindest way I can put it. Guy, and the thing that made me laugh the most was the people whose sole backing for her was the fact that she said, oh, I've been a director of football before. Oh, so all of a sudden then she's correct in what she's saying. Please use common sense, guys. I think it's a lost art in 2023. I think people are slowly forgetting how to use the brains that they were gifted with at birth and think for themselves. But if you truly believe that Arteta went behind his owner's back to go to Pep, who went behind their owner's back to get City to bid £90 million on a footballer that they had no interest in whatsoever, just to get Arteta's owners to pay more, you have lost the plot. You have lost the plot. It's even past cohesion or whatever the word is. This is just like business 101 here, guys. West Ham would never want to do a deal with Arsenal and City again. Arteta would be fired for his owners for going behind their back. That's just not the way business is done at the highest level. In fact, I don't think it's the way business is done at amateur level. I know she said that she's done deals like that at her level. I think her owners at the time will have heard that audio and actually raised their eyebrows, because I think it's highly suspect. And honestly, I think if you truly believe that that's what's happened between Arsenal and City, and that City never had interest, I think you've lost the plot. And there is literal proof that Pep and Declan Rice met over the summer, because there was credible evidence that City wanted the player. That's all I got to say on the matter. I think it's ridiculous.
Yeah, look, when she did the whole, I was right because Arsenal got him. I thought
it's pure coincidence. It's pure coincidence.
I thought, do you know what's, I will say this. Look, some of the things she's been sent and some of the things people have said to her are horrendous. There's no room for the sexism or the racism.
No.
However, I believe for many years, I've seen female pundits in the industry say we want to be treated as equals. So I'm going to treat Eniola Aluko as an equal and criticize or sort of pull apart what she said, because I think it's wrong. And I think doubling down saying I got it right, I couldn't find the correlation, because for me, you would have been right if David Ornstein would have said it's just broken that Pep only put the bid in to help Arsenal. Then you would have been spot on and would have gone, oh my God, Eniola Aluko, you're a genius. That didn't happen. But there is a worse story than that. Lee Gunner believes that David Ornstein, or as he calls him, David Pornstein, lied and made up the story that City bid. And he told me that all the other outlets around the world that run with the story that City bid use Ornstein as a source rather than City or West Ham. He said Ornstein made it up so that it looked like Arsenal beat City to a player. Now, Eniola Aluko's was a mad one, but Lee Gunner's is one flew over the cuckoo's nest. I could not believe what he was saying. Instead of saying, wow, my club just beat City to a £100 million. By the way, he rates Rice highly. He thinks he's sensational. So you've just beaten the current treble winners to one of the best available players in Europe. And instead of going, wow, my club stepped up and paid the right money, and or my club beat City, and or Declan Rice rejected City for us, you could go with any one of those narratives. Instead, his narrative was Arsenal have lied, City never bid, to make themselves look better. And I thought to myself, how much must this guy hate his own football club to not even celebrate in the moment of, because for me, it's a little win. It's not a trophy. Doesn't mean you're going to win the Premier League, but it's a nice little psychological win over a rival to beat them in a race for a player like this.
I think it's a huge sign of intent, to be honest with you. I think psychologically, it's a big signing, in my opinion. This is the first massive signing that Arsenal have made for a player that, in my opinion, globally is wanted, right? United wanted him, City wanted him, Bayern wanted him. They haven't made a signing of that level since Ozil, really, back in 2013. So I think it's a huge psychological signing and really shows that if you didn't believe in Arsenal already, the fact that they're here to stay, believe them now, because that kind of money for a player of that level, only serious clubs make it. Lee Gunner, I'm a big fan. If you're watching this, man, I was telling Terry backstage, I think you're hilarious, and I think you're good at what you do. But again, this is crazy. Honestly, I think people are really overthinking this. Business and transfers are not this complicated, guys. It's two teams that want a player. They both bid it. David Ornstein reports what happens. This is not rocket science here, guys.
Look, I agree with Lee that sometimes journalists will put out stories at the convenient times. If there's been a bad result, a player that signed a deal 2 weeks ago, they might hold it back. And I know this because somebody that works in the PR department of Spurs who left told me they might sign a new deal with a player the fans like, but then they've got a big game in 2 weeks. They hold back from announcing it until after that game. That way it's double bubble or it's something to soften the blow. But that isn't lying. That's just PR and releasing things at the right time. Yes, you will get journalists that will say, in my opinion, I don't think City walked away the way in which it's been published. My view is that we're going to match Arsenal's bid, but the player said, I'll pick Arsenal. Unless Arsenal get rejected, I'll come to you. But if you both get accepted, I'm going Arsenal. And I think City walked away. Now, some of these people disagree with that, but I'm not going to get into an argument over it because at the end of the day, Arsenal got him. They either blew City out the water, which is something to celebrate, or the player picked Arsenal over City, or both. And it doesn't really matter which it is. That's the story. To hear people twisting it into fake bids from City, journalists inventing bids, we didn't really win this, or this happened. I'm watching it thinking, I'm in the twilight zone. I'm honestly, pinch me. I must not be awake. I couldn't believe the way it was being dramatized so much. It was crazy.
Nah, look, I think it comes down to two things. I think it comes down to people still have this view of Declan Rice that he's overrated and that he's English and that teams around the world just, there's no way that they could be this interested in a player. And I think they refuse to believe that City and Pep, who play the way they want to play, they want their team to play, could be interested in Declan Rice, who's just a hoofball midfielder. I think that's what A comes down to. And B, it comes down to people not wanting to believe that Arsenal now have this pull that they can beat teams like City, beat teams like Bayern, beat teams like United, who, to be fair, weren't in the race, but I still think that they probably would have had the better project and package to sell to Declan Rice. They can't bring their minds around the fact that Arsenal are now at this stage in their process that they can attract players of this level. I think that's the two things that it comes down to. And I see a lot of people in the comments also saying, who are you? What do you do? Like, in terms of me saying what Eniola Aluko is saying is rubbish. Guys, if you truly believe that you have to have some standing in this game to have an opinion or to be correct about anything, then please, every single thing that Eniola Aluko says, please bring it and raise it to the level it needs to be. Every single thing that a professional footballer or a professional coach says, this is now godsend. I hope you are very consistent with that. None of us have an opinion to create our own beliefs. Anything that a professional says is correct. That's the way we're going off it then.
I look at it this way. If somebody can prove to me what Eniola Aluko said in terms of prove that it's right, prove what she said is absolutely spot on, and this happens on a, maybe not in this deal even. So let's just say it didn't happen in this deal, but there's proof, and a few ex-sporting directors, come out and go, yeah, we do that regularly. I will hold my hands up and say, I'm sorry, I got it wrong. The reason I can do that is because I have no personal agenda against Eniola Aluko. Now, I saw some of her outbursts on some of her tweets to people, some of her DMs, and I'm never about generalizing people based on any immutable, but I also understand how she goes through a level of abuse that I will never experience. I'm not a woman, and I'm not black. And I think if you're a black woman in this industry, there are certain people that will come for you whether you are right or wrong. And if you get something wrong, people double down. I saw people sharing a clip saying she's always been bad, of her saying so-and-so, I can't even remember which player it was, there's 19 goals in 40-odd games. And as you can see, it's almost a goal a game. And everyone's getting mental. And I'm like, listen, we all have slip of the tongues where what we all knew she meant a goal every other game. I don't sort of feel the need ever to pull people up on the wrong word being used. I hate it on Twitter if somebody uses the wrong there. It's almost like that doesn't debunk their argument here. You're not an English teacher. You're not marking their paperwork. Yes, not everybody's as intelligent as you, maybe. Maybe not everyone can spell as well as you, but that doesn't make their opinion any less valid. So I totally get where she's coming from. However, I'll, as I said, I'll treat her as an equal because that is exactly what she is. I think what she said, maybe when she's working for Angel City at that level of football. By the way, I don't even understand. In America, do transfers even work the same way as they do in England? And I say that because none of the other American sports have transfer windows like we do. So maybe you're conflating two very different. They have a draft system, but maybe a very different. Do they have that in the MLS, the draft system? I don't know.
Yeah, the MLS draft. Yeah.
Maybe because there's no monetary sums being involved. Maybe it's a little different. But I just don't believe at the top level of European football this has ever happened.
But Terry, even in her story, if you listen to it, right, the second time around with Simon Jordan, she starts backtracking. Because she realized that, like Simon Jordan effectively says, it may have happened, but what you did is either illegal or very immoral. Like an owner, if they found out about that, would be absolutely upset. And she goes on to backtrack, effectively saying, oh, I wouldn't call it this. I would call it rather communication, and that they were always going to bid more. Like the way she started phrasing it, she realized that what she was saying, if she was still working for that club, she'd probably get sacked. So did it happen? Maybe. But it is highly, highly suspect, man.
No, I agree. I agree. But as I already stated, the abuse doesn't need to follow. And, I mean, get off the I said young lady. She's the same age as me. I don't want to sound condescending, but she's young in the grand scheme of life. She's only like a year younger than me. But yeah, I still this is where it becomes a real difficult talking point because I've always viewed things at Terrace. You've been to many of our shows, our panels, our guests, everybody very, very multicultural, different, men and women. I believe I'll challenge anybody's opinion, whether whoever they are. I think there's a right and a wrong way of doing it. But yeah, the amount that the coverage, the coverage around the writing has been amazing. And
can I say one more thing, by the way? One more thing. We haven't even touched on the fact that in this specific example, again, I can't speak for other examples, but this one in particular is so outrageous for me because the biggest context isn't even being spoken about here. These are teams that just a month ago were going they were literally at each other's throat for the Premier League title, and everyone expects them again this season to be going at each other's throat for the Premier League title. What do Manchester City gain from helping Arsenal, their biggest title challengers in the last 12 months, sign a player that will raise the ceiling of their squad and get them that much closer for the league? If you truly believe that it's just between Guardiola and Arteta's friendship, that's what's happening, again, it's blowing my mind that people can even fathom this, man.
Yeah, Guardiola, even if this was a done thing in football, you're not going to help a competitor like that. Again, it just doesn't add up. And that's what I think that level of criticism was absolutely fair towards her. But I will stand by what I said earlier. Lee Gunner's view was worse.
It's up there.
Ornstein just invented it to make Arsenal look better. That's just so. Listen, I'm like Lee. I like Lee. I rate what he does.
Ornstein Bomba. That's what he's saying. It hits different when it's from Ornstein.
Yeah. Lee. Do you know what it is with Lee? As much as I think in his heart of hearts he wants Arsenal to win, there's a part of him that just because he said there's no way if City get involved, we get him. Lee can never take an L. Lee has no ability to
Yeah,
take
that's why.
So because he was wrong, instead of going, damn, I was wrong, he says, nah, there was no bid. So in his mind, he was still right. Do you get what I mean? So yeah, it's an interesting one. But there's a few super chats here. First one says, Terry,
Yeah.
is the new Club World Cup a threat to the Champions League? I doubt it.
No, not at all. They don't correlate. Yeah, I don't think so. The Super League, maybe. This, no.
No. City had interest. Arsenal needed him more. Yeah, that's about the long and the short of it. That's pretty much it. And they got the deal done. This comment from Carl here says, are Arsenal finishing first or second next season?
I have this feeling, and it's an early prediction. I still have to. Look, I'm not sold on the Havertz signing. I like him as a player. I think he will improve under Arteta. I'm not sure Arsenal will improve that much with him, but I'm happy to be wrong here. I have this feeling Arsenal are going to do it next season, man. Honestly, it almost gives me like, it makes me reminisce of like Liverpool, the season where they were like 1 point behind City, and then the next season they came back and won it. Now I have to see the business that City does. I have to like they look like they're close to signing Vardiol. Kovacic has come in, but let's see how the window ends for them. But at this current moment, I like Arsenal's trajectory, man. I maybe favor them next year.
I feel like, mate, I get where you're coming from. Like, I want to see preseason. I've never been so invested in watching Arsenal, Man United. I've always watched Man United's preseason, but I've never been so invested in watching other clubs' preseasons because work's being done early. Let's look how Liverpool progress, because Liverpool look like they're going to come back with a bang. You know, if the Darwins and the Gakpos go to another level next year, that'll be a thing. But
City, I think they're a year away, in my opinion. Liverpool, they're a year away.
They could be. Even with City, Gundogan going, Silva might leave. Yes, they're going to buy people. Will after the treble and a three-peat, will there be a slight lack of motivation? I'm not saying it will happen. These are questions to ask. So it's going to be very, very intriguing indeed. But viewers, what do you think to Lies' opinion? He's predicting, early prediction, Arsenal to win the league. I see a lot of people say they won't even make the top 4 next year. Maybe not in this.
No, that's nonsense, man.
You know, a lot of that online. They're not even going to make the top 4 I've seen.
I think that's hate. Like, look, okay, I don't want to say nonsense because everyone is entitled to their opinion. And until we see it happen, it's just a prediction. But there isn't enough to suggest that Arsenal will go down rather than up, or at least maintain their level, guys. Come on, this was a team that were on course to finish with above 90 points. And they are only improving in terms of the players they're signing. And their players that they had last year are only another year older and better. So I don't really know where that comes from. If you don't think Arsenal are going to the league, fair enough. I think that's very valid. You'd probably be like, I think I'm being optimistic for Arsenal fans, predicting that they beat City, because I think City should go into every single tournament every year as the favorites. But to predict Arsenal, not just to fall, but fall out of the top 4, I think that's hating right there, man. I think that's more hating than really being genuine.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's again, if we watch all the transfer window and preseason and there's 2 or 3 teams looking much better and they're struggling, then I would kind of get it. But as of right now, your predictions based on the transfers made and last season.
Yeah.
Pretty much. You know, Liverpool, I can understand people saying I think Liverpool have bounced back because the year before they nearly won a treble. But to like write Arsenal off right this second, it's no more than I just don't like Arsenal or this is what I want to happen more so than what I think like will happen. This year, Lee is one of the worst YouTubers. So much negativity and hate for Edu, Arteta, AFTV, Twitter, and a lot. The list. I think the list goes on and on. He's a sad agenda, 100%.
I think he's one of the best YouTubers, honestly. I love Lee Gunner's content, man. He kills me, bro. The thing where he was talking about it hits different when it's from Ornstein. We need the bomba. We need that shit killed me, bro. Because honestly, my timeline looks like that, bro. Yo, I need that. Here we go. I need that Ornstein bomba, man. Hook it to my veins. It's so accurate, bro. Of course he goes overboard, but man, he's an entertainer, and he entertains me, man.
Yeah, I think I look at Lee this way. I don't take Lee literally. That's right. Don't take him literally and don't take him too seriously. Just take it for what it is. I'm not saying he's fake or he's a parody, but I would say, and I work him every week. He adds 20% for effect. So just take it for what it is. Like I can't believe people let it like affect their day. That's the thing for me. But That's just my take. This here says, oh, if we sign Hojlund, Onana, the Monaco CB and Mount, yeah, then top 4 max. Then top 4 max.
I don't know, man. Yeah, we should be competing for top 4. Yeah.
With that team,
with that 4. Yeah.
No more than that, I would say.
Yeah.
But there we go. Look, I want to say a big thanks to Lyes and all of our viewers on tonight's show. It means a great deal that everybody comes in and tunes in on Sunday night. Back tomorrow with more content for you. Please hit the like button before you leave and make sure you've turned on the bell notifications as well. Lyes, let everyone know where they can find you, brother.
These days on every single channel, but you can find me Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Lyes Bouzidi 10. Yeah, my name and then just 10 at the end of it. You can find me on all those platforms, man.
You might, by the way, you might not be able to use Twitter. I know what's going on over there at the minute, bro.
Yeah, these days, the Truth Social, you're gonna find me at these days.
I did think it was funny though how some people are having meltdowns, and it's like, Elon Musk, he retweeted someone's parody of him. And it basically said, just get outside and touch some grass for a while, people. And I was like, there's a little bit of truth to that.
Not wrong.
No, like I get it. People love it. But yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Listen, people.
By the way, you can't find me on Truth Social, by the way. There's someone who's impersonating me on that app. It's not me.
I am on Truth. I didn't realize. I saw everyone else doing it. I went over there. I didn't realize that was Donald Trump's. People tell him I can't go on that because Trump owns it. And I'm like, I don't follow Trump that deep. I didn't know he owned it, but there we go. Yeah. Listen, everybody, until next time, take care. Goodbye. God bless. And I'll see you all again very, very soon. Thank you.